Hello and welcome to Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Cato. The UK and Germany are signing a landmark cooperation agreement today to help both countries combat smuggling gangs and boost defence exports. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer will be hosting German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in London for the signing of the treaty. Called the Bilateral Friendship and Cooperation Treaty, it is, in the words of Starmer, the first of its kind and will bring the UK and Germany closer than ever. The treaty is intended to deepen security and defence cooperation between both countries. Moreover, Germany has also pledged to make necessary legal changes to disrupt the supply lines which carry illegal migrants to the UK.
Well, let me begin, Chancellor, by welcoming you to London, to the United Kingdom. It is a fantastic thing, and it's a privilege to have you here today, particularly to sign this Kensington Treaty, which is a very special treaty because it's the first of its kind ever, if you can believe it, between our two countries. Yeah. And I see it very much as evidence of the closeness of our relationship as it stands today, the strength of our values, the strength of our joint approach, but also very much as a statement of intent, a statement of our ambition to work ever more closely together, closest of allies.
Russia continued its strikes on Ukraine overnight Wednesday. At least 4 people are reported dead and 48 injured after this latest wave of attacks. Drones and missiles fired by the Russians reached primarily northern and eastern regions of the country. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, 64 drones were launched overnight, 36 of which were downed by Ukrainian air defenses. Russia also launched missile and rocket barrages on numerous regions in Ukraine. The onslaught continues in a week that began with US President Donald Trump issuing a 50-day ultimatum to Vladimir Putin to end the war. Ukrainian parliament has officially appointed Yulia Svyrydenko as the country's new prime minister. The vote took place Thursday morning with 262 lawmakers in favour, 22 against, and 26 abstentions. The decision follows her nomination by President Volodymyr Zelensky on July 14th, aiming to rejuvenate the government's approach to economic and defence challenges amid the ongoing conflict. Svyrydenko, aged 39, previously served as First Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy. She played a pivotal role in securing a strategic minerals agreement with the US, highlighting her capability in fostering international economic partnerships. Her appointment is part of a broader cabinet reshuffle, with Denis Shmyhal possibly transitioning to the role of Defence Minister and Rustem Umerov, current Defence Minister, taking over the role of Ukrainian ambassador to the US. This leadership change marks a significant step in Ukraine's efforts to strengthen its governance and strategic initiatives amid war. The Guardian reports that NATO's top commander in Europe, General Alexis Grynkowicz, has confirmed that the US is pushing hard to deliver Patriot missile systems to Ukraine fast. This follows President Trump's announcement earlier this week, and Grynkowicz says the guidance is clear: move quickly.
I think Ukraine can win.
He didn't share exact numbers or timelines, but said preparations are already underway with close coordination from Germany. Patriots already stationed in Europe could be shifted to Ukraine soon and later replaced from US production lines. Grynkowicz, who just stepped into the top NATO post this month, stressed the urgency. He warned that even if peace comes to Ukraine, Russia will remain a long-term threat to the alliance. It's only been 1 day since the European Commission proposed its mammoth €2 trillion long-term budget, and some European capitals have been sent into a tailspin. The criticism of the 7-year policy document varies from support for Ukraine to an increase in taxes. More on this from our correspondent in Brussels, Angela Skujins.
The dust has only just settled from the European Commission's bold pitch to spend €2 trillion over the next 7 years, kicking in from 2028, and the reactions have already rolled in. Now, the most strident coming out of Berlin, we heard a spokesperson from the government led by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz stating that they were disappointed and stridently against this €2 trillion figure. This is a significant increase from the previous long-term budget, also known as the multi-annual financial framework. Now, the previous budget hovered at around €1.26 trillion. Germany, as well as the Netherlands and Sweden, are against this uptick, with those frugal countries arguing that the EU should be able to be resourceful with the number it's already settled on. However, it's not totally doom and gloom. We have heard some optimism coming out of France, with that country's EU Affairs Minister stating that this figure is a clear indication that the EU wants to get serious on some of its priorities, particularly security and defence, which saw a five-fold increase, now hovering at roughly €131 billion. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, however, described the budget as pro-Ukrainian, which comes at a cost to those farmers. Upon first blush, those agricultural workers are set to expect a 30% cut in funds offered to them. However, this is not the end. It's merely a proposal from the European Commission. All of the 27 capitals need to sign off on the budget before it heads to European Parliament, where it's expected to face fierce debate over the next 2 years. Angela Scoogens from Brussels for TVP World.
Despite the EU's proposed budget for the years 2028 to 2034 being almost €2 trillion, the agriculture sector will receive less funding than in previous multi-year financial frameworks. In an interview with TVP World, Piotr Arak, chief economist at VeloBank, said the move is likely to stir controversy among farmers who have already been on edge for the last few years regarding EU policies.
If agriculture is going to remain 300 million, that means it's by a quarter smaller than in the previous multi-financial framework. So it means that, for example, the agricultural sector in Poland or in Bulgaria, Romania, in France is going to receive less money than it is receiving right now. And we saw a lot of tension in the agricultural sector throughout the last 2 or 3 years after the entrance of Ukraine to the single market after the war, and the goods coming from Ukraine, and the additional tensions if those same businesses, those same farmers are not receiving the same amount of money that they were in the previous years. It means that, this could be very problematic for the governments that will support this.
The Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs has informed the Russian embassy in Warsaw that the recent Russian attack on the Polish flooring factory in Ukraine constituted a violation of international law, an MFA spokesperson wrote on X. Earlier, Poland's Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski condemned the attack and said it wasn't accidental. Barlinek is one of the biggest wooden floor manufacturers in Europe, and the attack has left it inoperable for at least 6 months.
Yesterday, the Polish Foreign Ministry informed a representative of the Russian Federation's embassy that the attack on the Barlinek company's plant in Venezia, which is a Polish property and deals with civilian production only, is a violation of international law.
But we do need to take into account also the fact that the Russian propaganda boasts hitting the foreign facility that actually produce weapons. That's not to say that this is true. This is a terrifying attack against the civilian infrastructure, but this is the way in which it is being framed and sort of sold to the Russian citizens, that the Russian government and Russian military are targeting the cover-ups for the foreign production of arms and weapons for Ukraine.
EU anti-crime agencies Europol and Eurojust announced they have dismantled a pro-Russian cybercrime network responsible for attacks on critical infrastructure in Europe. The network, known as No Name 057, was dismantled after authorities conducted 24 raids in 12 countries between July 14th and 17th.
European authorities allege that the hacking group carried out 73 attacks per day, at first targeting Ukraine and later shifting focus to Kyiv's allies in the EU and NATO. The investigation led to 2 arrests, one in France and another in Spain. Authorities also issued 7 arrest warrants targeting 6 individuals in Russia, including 2 who have been identified as central figures in the criminal network. The group had over 100 computers at its disposal, which have been taken offline by EU authorities, along with the group's central server infrastructure.
2 people have been detained in Batumi, Georgia, on charges related to the illegal sale and purchase of nuclear material, specifically uranium. One of them is a Georgian citizen and the other is a foreign national. The individuals are facing up to 10 years in prison.
According to the suspects, the illicit uranium was intended to be sold for $3 million. Given its radiation dose, intensity, and the source's radioactive alpha and gamma emissions, this material could be used to manufacture various explosive devices, facilitate terrorist attacks, or cause other catastrophic and deadly consequences. The investigation into this criminal act is ongoing.
More than 40% of Czechs believe the European Union might interfere in the country's parliamentary election come October. A survey by the Central European Digital Media Observatory has shown. The figures indicate that the Czechs consider the EU almost as big a threat to its election as Russia. This resonates with the Czech Republic's growing Euroscepticism, as a mere 29% of the country's population view the European Union positively compared to the bloc-wide average of 43%. Similar sentiment is seen in other countries in the region. 46% of people in Slovakia consider the EU the biggest election interference threat, which is more than Russia, while in Poland the EU is deemed the second biggest threat to the electoral process, only 8 percentage points behind Russia. The Czech Republic's election will be held in early October, with opposition right-wing populist Andrej Babiš and his party ANO currently polling well ahead of the largest group in the ruling coalition Spolu, led by Prime Minister Petr Fiala. A breakthrough in the murder case of a Polish professor in Athens, where the victim's ex-wife has been charged with arranging his killing and her current partner with carrying out the shooting. Przemysław Jeziorski, an economics lecturer at an American university, was shot 5 times in daylight near his former wife's home in Athens earlier this month. Jeziorski's Greek ex-wife has reportedly denied masterminding his death, but her partner, also a Greek national, admitted his involvement, according to reports, along with 2 Albanians and 1 Bulgarian. All 5 have been arrested and are expected to testify on Thursday. Reports say that Jeziorski and his ex-wife were involved in long-running arguments over the custody of their 2 children, as well as financial disagreements. We can't afford to have Leandowski out of the national team, Poland's new head coach Jan Urban said in an interview with the Polish Football Association's YouTube channel Łączy Nas Piłka. Urban went on to say that he will put his best foot forward to bring Robert Lewandowski back, as Poland's all-time best scorer suspended his international career last month after a row with the now ex-coach Michał Probierz.
Let's imagine, because no one is talking about it, that Robert says, "No, I'm really done with the national team. I want to focus exclusively on the club at the end of my career." It could happen. Of course, I will do everything I can to prevent that from happening and to get Robert back, because we know the current state of Polish football. I know that today we can't afford to have Lewandowski out of the national team. We have been to many tournaments recently, and it was Robert who, to a very large extent, helped us qualify for those tournaments. Therefore, I hope that he does not make such a decision. That's why I'm not going to judge the situation from a distance, but I will definitely have the opportunity to talk to Robert, and we'll see how it all ends. But I have no problem, for example, with going to meet Robert, because some people would criticize me saying that there is a new coach and he is already going to see Lewandowski. New coaches go to Messi, to Cristiano Ronaldo, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Archaeologists working on the shores of Lake Ohrid in Albania are convinced they have uncovered the oldest human settlement built on a European lake, having found evidence of an organized hunting and farming community living up to 8,000 years ago. The team from Switzerland and Albania spent hours each day about 3 meters underwater, painstakingly retrieving wooden stilts that supported houses.
Till now, it's the oldest, and that means long times, some sites in Italy and Spain, which date to 5,200, 5,300 BC, were taken as the oldest of these kind in Europe. But with Lynn, we are definitely 500 years older.
I estimate it's about 6 hectares. And we have now done not even 600 square meters. So this is just a small peak hole in the whole settlement area. I would say under 1% we have been doing excavating here.
And that fascinating note concludes Midday Report. Thank you so much for being with us, and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.